Again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather, the last full day of summer, with fall beginning tomorrow at some point in the day. I forget the time, but 23rd actually begins, and so again, 22nd today, the last full day of summer. Anyway, moving on, satellite imagery showing the clouds associated with all the rain pushing eastward here, the first surge of moisture associated with a low that's slowly moving in toward the southwest coast, the Yukon Delta coast. That brought some fair amounts of precipitation eastward today, as well as in south central Alaska. Talkeetna picking about 3/4 of an inch of precipitation. That's in the 12-hour period from 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. today. And Yakutat, about the same amount there, while Cordova picked up nearly an inch today, and areas in and around that same area had upwards of 2 inches in that same time frame. Otherwise, just a few hundredths getting in the central Copper River Basin area, and lighter amounts up to the north here, but then they pick up again due to this upper level system that's still hanging out in the northeast interior, bringing some areas of light snow, negligible amounts, but it's falling in the form of snow. Temperatures near or just below freezing along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, eastern north slope on down into the Brooks Range actually for the cool air. Pretty good break here over the northwest part of the state, as well as behind this next surge of moisture coming in. It's more showery and less windy, although most of the winds were occurred out over the with this system here along the southwest coast, southwest interior areas, 25 to 35 miles an hour today. Higher gusts along the coast, and as you can see, big change now in store for the southeast coast. Already clouds overspreading just about the entire area this afternoon. Rain not quite just getting into the northwest areas there, west of Juneau as well as Haines. Light amounts, but significantly heavier rain will be sliding eastward later on this evening and overnight tonight. On the chart, here's the position of the rain out in advance of this warm front here, and the rain pushing eastward. Again, tapering off, some clearing. Cook Inlet this afternoon after the heavier amounts of rain occurring overnight. Again, as much as half an inch up the Matanuska Valley in some areas, and just some scattered showers this afternoon, mostly over the Alaska Range, back into northeast Bristol Bay. And clear skies reported at Kodiak for a period this afternoon, but some more high cloudiness coming in. A little bit of a wave developing along this front here, and that's allowed it to kind of rotate and bow back to the northwest, and that just brought a little bit of rain return to Sand Point. So just grazing the Alaska Peninsula there, and that should move off this evening with a westerly flow. And then the system out here right off the coast, pretty good winds, gusts 60 miles an hour reported at Cape Newenham earlier today. With other areas like Dillingham, they had gusts to about 40 miles an hour, otherwise 40 to 50 along the southwest coast, more common on the wind speeds there, and anywhere from 25 to 35 miles an hour over the interior, diminishing here as you head east. And that will slowly diminish on those stronger wind gusts here as the low slowly weakens, but the system isn't going to be moving too fast. And we have another trough here that's west of Adak, so they had a pretty dry day today, and east of Shemya, they also had actually some VFR today with just a few clouds around, but that'll be slipping on into the Adak and eventually the Atka area overnight tonight for some more moisture. And for tonight, we'll see that trough just does just that, track eastward there. Low here off to the east, trying to crank up. That keeps precipitation not reaching the eastern Aleutians through tonight. And right on the edge here for the Alaska Peninsula, I think it'll slip back down to the south. Could just undulate around. It'll have a slight chance. There's still a chance of rain on the southern coast of the Alaska Peninsula. I think it'll stay east of Kodiak, hopefully. Drew it pretty close there, kind of right on the razor's edge. But it should be in the dry slot that will keep south central variably to mostly cloudy with some clearing tonight. Anyway, dry, much drier night tonight than what we saw last night as the main rain area shifts up into the central interior along this front, extending out to the main low, becomes a little more widespread. Less wind though, still pretty breezy here, west-southwest. On the breezy side with small craft advisories, I think that's about it out there for the marine areas, and even lighter back to the west, lighter for the Aleutians. Still, that upper level low, not moving a whole lot, kind of generating or stealing some moisture here. One batch moving off of that trough, kind of curving back around. That keeps a chance of light snow in over the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. and dry on the west side, stays dry with maybe some clearing here for the Noatak Valley out to Kivalina, and probably see clouds in Kotzebue, but no precipitation for much of the Seward Peninsula. It looks like rain will finally get down across Dixon Entrance there, so rain for the entire Panhandle, chance of tonight, nothing too terribly heavy. And that frontal boundary will keep it wet, mostly over the central and southern southeast coast for tomorrow, as the jet drops a little bit to the south, and actually some building, a ridge building here to the west will turn it more northwesterly, and that'll help push it into the south there. As you can see, conditions dry out to the north, just some scattered showers ending for Yakutat, maybe a little bit of sun. Look for some sun possibly for Cook Inlet, as well as maybe Kodiak early in the day into Bristol Bay, with showers along the Alaska Range, and most of the clouds and showers will be back west of the mountains due to the slow movement of this low pressure area that's sitting right over the Yukon Delta along the coast here near Armonic at about 995 millibars, continuing to weaken. So winds will be really much lighter than what you saw with this system today. Still low breezy in areas, but nothing more than the 15 to 20, maybe 25 miles an hour. And lots of clouds and showers. Trough axis here again linking up with the upper level low over the northeast interior, so that'll be an enhanced area of clouds and precipitation, mostly in the form of rain. Until you get up to the Brooks Range, it could be in the form of either rain or snow or a mixture thereof, throwing some fog out along the coast, but maybe some sunshine on the western north slope on out to the western Arctic coast due to easterly drier offshore flow, much like today, Kotzebue, maybe some sun, Kobuk, Selawik Valley areas, same thing, Kiana, Shishmaref possibly into the Seward Peninsula. Clouds though for Nome, but basically dry. If you do get any precipitation, it'll be quite light. And out over the Aleutians, just clouds and showers with basically marginal VFR for the flying conditions out there. Some areas of IFR, but not too bad. System actually breaking up the lower clouds and reducing it, so we kind of lost that widespread IFR we had out there for a while off and on. Anyway, showers heaviest or more numerous, not necessarily heavy, but more numerous up around the Pribilof Islands, becoming more scattered down toward the Aleutians, and just a risk of an isolated shower out west. Fox Islands tomorrow, chance of showers, could be mostly a dry day, mostly cloudy, could be a break or two in the clouds or some sun. And this system now intensifying, tracking northward, kind of hard on the timing. That's going to definitely return rain to the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island late in the day, holding off probably till evening, but this system's going to track due north and looks like a pretty good wind producer, kind of a classic setup for some strong winds for south central Alaska. Exactly how it tracks and the orientation of pressure gradient with it and how far east the front is when it does track north. But anyway, it's definitely going to come northward and bring another round of wind and rain, southern Alaska, Sunday night into early Monday. Looking at Monday, we'll see that does track right up into the central interior. Front pushes eastward there, so the winds strongest late tomorrow night, early in the day on Monday, becoming more west-southwest and diminishing in the afternoon, but still pretty breezy. The original low still out here to the west, so kind of westerly winds 15 to 30 miles an hour into the southwest coast. Rain, Kuskokwim Valley, eastward to trying to spill back into Cook Inlet here after a break early in the day into about midday with just some showers as the front pushes more rain into the eastern interior as well as the southeast coast. Stays dry up to the north with basically cool easterly flow, maybe some fog along the Arctic coast, but I don't think it'll be anything too widespread. And looking at the lows up there for tonight, call it 25 to 30. Otherwise, lower 30s to the Brooks Range, maybe some upper 20s like around Anatuvik, and in 30s to lower 40s central interior. Mostly in the 40s, southern Alaska, Kodiak Island. Forecast low at Kodiak State Airport, 52 degrees. In the 40s, mostly for the Panhandle. Upper 40s for the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow afternoon. Mid-30s there in the Arctic coast, North Slope. And 40s to lower 50s here for south central Alaska. You see Sitna Valley again pushing 60 degrees, depending on how much sunshine breaks out tomorrow afternoon. Same thing for Kodiak. And mid to upper 50s for the Panhandle, a little cooler in the north. And then your lows for Monday morning, 25 to 30, northern interior, 40s in the Panhandle as well as over the southwest, 30s in the central interior. Highs, 55 to 60 again, so Sitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, and the southeast coast. 30 to 35 for the highs, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 40s in the Brooks Range, mostly in the 50s here.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather. A lot of IFR here, as you can see from the Brooks Range on out to the, say around Wainwright, eastward to Mackenzie Bay. Swath of VFR here from Koyukuk Valley back out across Seward Peninsula. Noatak Valley, Kivalina, Kotzebue, Selawik, all looking good. VFR to start the day tomorrow. A lot of marginal and IFR here across southern Alaska. Really socked in with the IFR now for the southeast coast with marginal to the central Gulf of Alaska. VFR here, Prince William Sound. And then that holds into tomorrow afternoon. Conditions improve some here over the southeast coast, but still IFR over toward the border, marginal elsewhere, spotty VFR. Lots of marginal stuff out here over the southwest interior, and a narrow band up through the central interior. Then becomes more widespread and throw in some IFR, eastern Brooks Range areas, and stays VFR back here, Seward Peninsula, into now almost the Koyukuk Valley there with marginal VFR for the Aleutians. Monday morning, IFR makes somewhat of a comeback here along the Brooks Range, eastern north slope out to about Prudhoe Bay there eastward, and marginal to the west. VFR holds here, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, the southeast Chukchi Sea into Kotzebue Sound there over to the Kobuk Valley. IFR along the western central Alaska Range, also the North Gulf Coast here, south along the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, Auckland Mountains, otherwise marginal out west. IFR still holding eastern part of the Panhandle with marginal VFR and spotty IFR out toward the coast. And then for the afternoon, not really much of a change down there. IFR still holds Yakutat and the Coast Range up to the Wrangell Mountains, northern Prince William Sound, the Talkeetnas, VFR Cook Inlet, marginal for the peninsula, VFR Kodiak Island, still VFR up here in the northwest, marginal VFR for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Marginal VFR much of the Bering Sea, kind of breaking up here around the Pribilofs. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR trending toward VFR in the afternoon. That same trend will go for Adigan as well, and Lake Clark and Merrill. IFR start with marginal VFR in the afternoon. Rainy, occasionally marginal. Windy, occasionally marginal. Chance of IFR southern entrance at times. Isabel, IFR becoming marginal. And for Mentesta, marginal VFR becoming VFR, probably by late morning. And same trend for Teneda, marginal VFR, this is going to be early on, could become VFR by mid-morning and hopefully last through the afternoon, optimistically. And for Portage, nothing but VFR. Chilcoot White, IFR, kind of hard to say after what seemed like 50 days in a row of VFR. And for the freezing levels here, 2 to 4,000 feet just south of the Brooks Range, pretty slack until you get slopes up to 6,000 around Kodiak Island, the Gulf of Alaska. A little bit more of a gradient here associated with the jet stream down toward the southern southeast coast, and not much of a variance out there to the west. Icing, moisture sliding northeastward here and pushing eastward. So areas of isolated moderate rime above 5,000 feet, slopes down to about 2,000 feet up there toward the eastern north slope. Not expected actually south central Alaska. Another swath here, could be some moderate in that, considerable moderate over the northern panhandle above about 7,000 feet. Jet stream, several upper level lows. This one really not moving at all. In about that position today, it'll be there tomorrow and probably tomorrow night. We have one still off the Yukon Delta coast. Another one forms right in here, some kind of storm development taking place in this portion here of the jet stream. And it's right up across Kodiak Island, 130 knots, and taking a look at 9,000 feet. Low pressure right off the Yukon Delta coast. Developing system right in here somewhere, and big increase in the winds just south of Kodiak Island. Otherwise, pretty light over the interior. Westerlies 30, 35 in across the Panhandle. Light winds over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for 3,000 feet, 20, 40 knot winds around this low in a narrow band here coming into the southwest coast. Narrow band of 20, 25 knot winds out of the southwest to the eastern border there. 25 for Kodiak Island and just to the south, and about 10 to 15 out over the Aleutians. And westerlies into the Panhandle about 15 to 25, I'd say, but really not all that bad, but stronger at 9,000 feet as we saw. And so with that, a little bit more of a surface gradient there. So moderate chop pretty likely over the southern southeast coast there, above about or below 4,000 to 5,000 feet. Also here over the southwest interior, and this sliding up to Kodiak Island.
It's a complicated project, but a simple life. You can study whales all over the world, you can study harbor seals all over the world, but you cannot study them in silence all over the world. So we really need this sort of piece of wilderness, this untrammeled wilderness, as they say, in order to answer some of these questions.
So we've been monitoring underwater sound here in Glacier Bay since May of 2000. And the reason why we're doing that is to understand what the park is like from the perspective of a marine mammal, because marine mammals are very dependent on the natural sound environment.
If you sort of bring it back to humans, humans respond to noise in very stereotypical ways, and other mammals do the same thing. So, if you go to a concert with your buddy and the music's really loud, you're going to talk at a higher pitch. You're going to talk louder, and you might have to repeat yourself. And marine mammals do the same thing if it gets noisy. So we're seeing, just which of those three that they actually do. We're here on Strawberry Island for the entire summer.
We sample 8 to 12 hours a day. There'll be 2 people who are on our beach station doing scans, marking each whale in the area, 2 people who are doing focal follows from our tower, which is a temporary tower that we have set up here on Strawberry Island. And then we have 2 people who are in the kayak who are doing fine scale acoustic sampling for harbor seals. Got a harbor seal at 23 meters.
Got it? What's her bearing?
Bearing is 5822121.
Being able to pair what an animal is saying with where the animal is saying it is an amazing data set. It's a hard data set to get. It takes a lot of work, but it can answer so many questions.
So our cruise ship right here in the background is right on time today. We have a blissful hour and a half before the cruise ship gets here where we can watch our whales in silence, and then our ship comes in, bringing with it the noise that it brings, and we watch our whales while the ship's here to see whether or not their behavior is changing. And then it's going to go up bay and bring passengers to go see the glaciers, and we are going to get that blissful quiet again to see whether or not our whales are going back to that natural behavior.
This is the computer that runs our underwater acoustic monitoring. And there's a 5-mile cable from my office that leads out to a hydrophone that's out recording live sounds in Glacier Bay. And if I turn this up a little bit louder for the moment, that's the sound of a male harbor seal roaring because it's the mating season.
Bartlett Cove, Strawberry Island. Building a good field team and building some good camaraderie is really important. We have sort of these daily routines of things that we do together. So there's a schedule that we check every morning, who's gonna cook lunch that day, who's gonna cook dinner. And then every day we take a group photo. And then every day we do a daily check-in. We talk about what worked that day, what didn't work that day, and what we learned either from the island or from each other over the course of the day. Surface 900600.
Last night, there were anywhere from 8 to 10 individuals right along the kelp bed off the point. We were trying to figure out exactly what they were doing. So as acousticians, Michelle and I got a hydrophone.
That seemed like the right thing to do.
Put the hydrophone in the water to see what was going on. Well, we dropped the hydrophone and it was so quiet. There was not a single roar.
Nothing. We heard nothing.
It was just so unusual.
One of the things we did observe yesterday was 2 large bull killer whales who had come into the area that we learned today were transient killer whales. They do come into this area to hunt harbor seals. This is a pupping ground. That's what they come in for.
Yep.
We cannot in any way, shape, or form definitively link the presence of mammal-eating killer whales with the silence of harbor seals.
No, but it is quite interesting that they happened at the exact same time. It's always an adventure on Strawberry Island. You never know what the day's gonna bring.
This morning at 5:15 in the morning, the area was just boiling with whales. I had one 15-minute scan this morning where I was literally hopping back and forth on either side of the theodolite, calling out numbers to try and get all the whales as quickly as possible. And then 15 minutes later, we couldn't find them. Aside from getting to be outside all the time, my favorite part of doing my PhD is getting to work with Leanna.
It goes both ways.
It helps when you put two minds that think differently onto the same problem.
Global ocean noise is a real problem, and there are areas of the ocean that have underwater sound from vessels so often that you could almost consider it an urban environment. Glacier Bay is a very remote area, and it was set aside as a national park in part to do scientific research. And we're privileged to be able to use it as a natural laboratory where we can better understand the impacts of underwater noise.
There are some places that act like characters in your life, and I think that a lot of Alaskans can resonate with the fact that living here is like having another family member. It's like having somebody really, really important who's sort of nudging you to be a little uncomfortable all the time and to stretch yourself all the time because it's worth it. I've lived here for almost 10 years. I've made Alaska my home, and so I'm an Alaskan by choice.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Still this area sitting up here kind of just floating around, not moving a whole lot, and new ice still forming slowly up here on the northern pack, especially back up in this zone here where it's a little farther to the north. And really about the same thing over the next few days. This may start drifting south with some northwest winds coming in first of next week, but that's a little iffy, so don't look for any big changes over the next 5 or 6 days. And coastal water forecast for the Panhandle looks like small craft advisories for west winds, 25 knots, 10-foot seas, dropping down to 15 knots, extreme north coast. 25-knot winds from the south, Stevens Passage, Lynn Canal, seas running 3 to 5 feet, and Clarence Strait just 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And then for Monday, 30 knots, southerly, Lynn Canal, small craft advisories there, south 20, Stevens Passage, light southerlies for Clarence Strait, west-southwest at 20 for the southwest coast with 9-foot seas. And then we got south winds kicking up to 25 knots, seas build up to about 10 feet for extreme north coast. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, west at 10. Cook Inlet, lighter winds than what we saw today with under small craft advisories, south to southwest at 20 with 5 to 6-foot seas. 15, Kamishak Bay, westerlies 15 for the Barrens and the North Gulf Coast with 5 to 6-foot seas. And then for Monday, winds kick back up, pretty uniform on the speed, 30 knots it looks like. Prince William Sound, southeast 30 knots, seas up to 7 feet. South 30 knots with 11-foot seas here in the eastern North Gulf Coast. Southwesterlies at 30 back to the Barren Islands, and southwest 30 for southern Cook Inlet. Kamishak Bay, 9 to 10-foot seas. Northern Cook Inlet, southeast 30 knots. Seas forecast up to 10 feet. And for Kodiak Island, south to southwest tomorrow, 15 to 20, strongest in these eastern zones here with 8-foot seas. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 25, turning east at 30 on down to Cape Saratchev with 10-foot seas. Lighter winds on the Bering Sea side, just southwest 15. Bristol Bay, southwest at 20 with 7-foot seas. And pick back up to 30 knots here. Bristol Bay all the way down the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. South side, small craft advisories too, but 25 knots right up to Sitkinak. Kodiak Island, gales. Shelikof Strait, southwest 35, seas 11 feet. 30 knots there on the east side with 14-foot seas. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, west to maybe northwest, at roughly about 15 knots, 6 to 7-foot seas there. Central Aleutians, pretty good wind-wise. All these areas, 15 knots, really laid down, 5-foot seas, Adak and Atka. Northwest, 15 out west with those seas at about 6 feet. And the outlook for Monday, really not much change, west-northwest, 15 or so with 4 to 5-foot seas. Northwest 15, Adak and Atka. Turned westerly at 15 for Unmak Island. Unalaska Island, kicking up to about only 20 knots though, west-southwest on the direction, seas about 5 to 7 feet. Southwest coast, northwest, 20 knots north of Nunivak Island. Small craft advisories south of there, blowing into Kuskokwim Bay. West 20 for the Pribilofs, north 20 for St. Matthew Island. Northwest 20 there for the Yukon Delta coast. St. Lawrence Island, north of 20. And outlook for Monday, north 20 for St. Lawrence Island again. West 20 north of Nunivak Island. Small craft advisories hold, but now out of the west there, south of the island. Pribilofs, west 20, northwest 20 for St. Matthew Island. And up on the Beaufort Sea coast, light winds tomorrow, 10 knots for the central areas all the way east, out of the northeast, with 2 to maybe 4 foot seas. A little brisker here on the west side, 20 knot winds, all the way down to Cape Thompson. Cape Thompson to Wales, northeast 15, seas 4 feet. And for Monday, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east winds 10 to 15, no seas 2 to 3 feet, 3 feet, 15 knots. Central coast, west side about 20, so holding steady there all the way down to Cape Thompson, 20 knots out of the east, 7 foot seas. Then Cape Thompson to Wales, northeast 15, seas at about 4 feet. And for tonight again, up in that area, maybe some clearing, stays dry definitely through the Brooks Range. Upper level low keeps a chance of snow along the Arctic coast into the north slope. And of course, any elevation in the Brooks Range on the east side, but amounts are going to be very light. Rain pushing northward with this front, areas of light rain into the mid and upper Tanana Valley areas, 40-mile country across Copper River Basin, heaviest on the upslope areas of the Alaska Range, and also rain overspreads the entire southeast coast. Pretty good here behind the front for Kodiak Island, south central Alaska, drying out Prince William Sound. Next system here, tracking northward, and you'll see bring some wind and rain into southern and south central Alaska, with rain spreading back in over the Panhandle on Monday afternoon.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.